What's different about what we do, most people think like we're just buying off-the-shelf sensors and actuators and then embroidering them or sewing them into textile. But the DNA of what we do, we're manipulating molecules and then advanced materials and extruding these materials into yarn. Then imagine a yarn of the future, which we have now, that can store power, can deliver drugs, can heal a wound, or can measure clinical biomarkers from an everyday textile. And the difference is you can see it in a form of an electrode that our machine produces it automatically, if you will. And then this is a form of a chest band that once you put it on your body, it has 3 vectors or 3 leads of the heart, 3 lead EKG of the heart. So you're measuring clinical biomarkers, and then you can screen for arrhythmia and things like this, which is pretty important to democratize access of something like this to anyone, because that's what we solve for today, is the ability to deliver screening and examination on demand, but clinical screening, not just trying to figure out what's right and wrong. The ability of this product, the possibility with this product is to have a continuous relationship between the patient and the doctor and eliminate the needs of going to a clinic, book an appointment, travel from far away, and all of those things will be solved something like this. But it goes beyond just measuring, because we use this advanced materials for measurement, but also to deliver back to the body certain therapy. So this technology can deliver electric stimulation for someone who has back pain or someone who wants to stimulate vagus nerve to minimize the effect of an arrhythmia, or to do wound care, wound healing, because you can manipulate the stem cell using the electrical or magnetic field. So there's so much that there's so many possibilities that can be done on textile. And so we spent 16 years developing this type of yarn. It wasn't easy because you have to extrude this material into something that people can wear. And on top, it needed to meet cytotoxicity and a biocompatibility requirement, because most people can't tolerate things that will create skin irritation. So all of those things took us forever to get to a point where you can actually prescribe a medical device made of textile, which is where we are today. We're fully regulated Class 2 medical device in Canada and in Europe now. And we're issuing this product to thousands and thousands of patients have tried it since mid last year. And it's really enabling a very different peace of mind between families, patients, and their doctors. Because one of the problems in heart disease they refer to it as a silent killer for a reason, because some of the behavior, it's not easily noticeable by humans, especially when humans are sleeping or they're busy. So we have developed the entire care system, or the healthcare system is designed around human expressing what's right and wrong with them. But if you have a disease that is constantly not transmitting its symptoms in a way that human can understand, you're going to have many people left behind as a result of, if you wear an everyday bra or an underwear or a tank top made of textile like this, now you can really leverage AI to understand what's going on, not in a reactive way, in a real-time or proactive way. So it's a very, very different type of product. It doesn't replace only an existing blood pressure device or a Holter device. It leapfrog. It enables many, many modalities to come at once from one platform, and it really enables a much better understanding that goes beyond spending only 10-20 minutes with a doctor, because that's, unfortunately, the doctor doesn't have as much time to give like the old days. So just measuring data for months and months at a time, and then leveraging AI to really see any small deviation, it solves many, many problems. So that's kind of what we're doing. This is our cardiovascular disease, kind of a Holter product, again in a form of a chest band or an underwear or an armband or a polo. So it's available in any form factor that humans are used to already. And then in addition, we have additional product that deliver pain therapy drug-free. So this is a product here, it's called the heated wrap. So this is a product that we have done lots and lots of clinical research on, and 80% of the women who use this product for pain therapy stop taking painkillers. So this is made of textile. It delivers heating across the textile. No wires, no metal, no plastic, just wool with some of our conductors that we develop like this. But it also works very well for back pain. It's not just for women, but in this case, we've done a lot of clinical validation for women with menstrual pain. And the goal is, because one of the problem is this idea of one size fits all therapy or medication is not really accurate. Sometimes you have, you need to increase or decrease the dose based on all sort of conditions. So having something like this is really important. The same idea works for, we're launching this product, which is a heart, we refer to it as a heart aid kit. So meaning every family, and unfortunately in Canada, we have 10 million people living or diagnosed already with cardiometabolic health disease, related diseases, from type 2 diabetic to heart failure to COPD to arrhythmia, sleep apnea. So the whole idea is using a chest band or a bra or an armband could consolidate many of these diseases into one form factor. So you don't need to have a blood pressure, and then you have to go to a sleep apnea clinic separately, and then you have to measure your arrhythmia separately. The whole thing is in one, because unfortunately with heart-related diseases, there's many, many comorbidities, especially after a certain age. So many people in Canada living with 2 or 3 heart-related diseases that require 2 or 3 separate specialists, separate appointments, and people who live far away from a doctor can't keep up and can't deal with that. So this heart aid kit will ship to many families, and as a result, they can do now examination on demand across many of those risks. So this is our first product. Then sometime in the fall, we're launching our pain therapy product. So this is in a form of a band for menstrual pain, also for back pain, but it works very well for anyone with arthritis. It will have different form factor. It could be in a shoulder pad, in a knee band, or whatever. But it also can help, poor circulation at maybe feet or hands. People living with Raynaud conditions, or people have type 2 diabetic with low circulation, they end up having very cold feet. So you can have our socks, which I'll show you in a little bit how they can generate power and distribute power. Then the same thing is for, this is a knee band. Maybe Joyce, you can bring me this knee band. This is actually a very interesting product. And so you can scan, our system can scan my knee. It's like the Invisalign idea for dentistry. So, and you send that scan to the machine, and the machine will knit, let's say I scan my right knee, and the machine will knit this, and when you see it, you can imagine it will be to my size, and all you need to do is just sew it in this one, in this seam over here, and now you have a knee band. But this knee band will do electric stimulation, will measure for infection. It will measure all the biomechanic movement, range of movements. If someone had a knee replacement or a knee surgery, the beauty of this product, you still need to wear some type of a compression garment or a knee band anyway. The difference is by functionalizing this knee band and having sensors and actuators, now the doctor or the rehab physiotherapist could see your progress remotely. So you don't need to, again, come back to the clinic. One of the problems we have in Canada, and I think that's a problem now worldwide, is clinics cannot scale. And many people do not want to work in a clinics or don't want to attend clinic hours. And unfortunately, we have an aging population in Canada, and it's not possible, especially with the distance that people have to travel, it's not possible to spend 2, 3, 4 hours in traffic to go see a doctor for 20 minutes. So something like this is, we believe, the way of the future. I wanted to make my wife very happy. So we're developing a complete equestrian line and a canine line. And so you'll be able to also, because for me, as you remember, Anthony, I told you the thesis of what we wanted to do. What's most important to me is how to keep the family connected. And so this level of connectedness, especially when we have loved ones who are not well or they live far away from us. So this is a complete horse band that, using the same advanced materials, you can see many electrodes. And we have validated this. We have all sorts of scientific papers. We have validated this with top 10 university research, that our system is on par or ahead of the gold standard of measuring EKG for arrhythmia on racehorses during race. Also, we can measure symmetry for jumping horses, etc. So someone who have a pet or a large animal can also continue to understand what's going on with them. They can observe their diet, they can observe their well-being, how they slept, how they exercised. And then if you need a vet, it could be a remote relationship. You don't have to go to the vet and get the vet to come, especially if you have if you live on a farm or far away from hospital system, etc. And especially when an event happen on the weekend. I've been through it multiple times. It's very disruptive. So having something like this could deliver peace of mind to the family, because if you have a pet, it becomes a member of your family, and you have to look after that pet, and it's pretty interesting. So anyway, that's our first product that will be launching, we hope, sometime this fall. We're really excited about this. It's a game-changing product. There's nothing like it on the market, but the same product also exists in a dog vest. Again, it has multi-lead EKG. It measures core body temperature. It measures anxiety, stress. Again, these are not GPS type trackers. A lot of people have those things. This is measuring well-being of the pet or the large animal at a clinical grade. Measuring full EKG, full EKG, core body temperature, breathing rate, breathing volume. And from that, leveraging AI, we can extract anxiety, stress, happiness. Of course, we also measure all the biomechanic data, movement, barking, running, standing, sitting, laying down, tossing, turning. All of those things become part of the data that you consume about your animal from far away. So if you happen to travel and you want to leave your pet at a kennel, instead of living with anxiety and constantly seeing what's going on with my pet, you can have this continuous relationship with your pet from far away. Things like this. I see it as a natural evolution of what we're trying to do to keep the family connected and to provide access to technology the way I believe it needs to be. So things like this. So all our electronics are transferable. You can move them from this collar to the equine band, as you can see on the equine band. Sorry. This is our electronic. The same electronic is the one here. So you can move them, but the electronic is just a transmitter. The sensor is a textile-based transmitter, sensor. So things like this. So now I just explained to you a little bit about our textile, some of the possibilities. I mentioned to you this is our armband, but recently, Anthony, we've acquired 2 or 3 companies, and one of them is in the biomechanic. This is a Boston-based company that measure. It's a FDA-approved product that really measure post-surgery, especially post-incident or injuries or surgeries, It measures rehabilitation and assessment. It does it, again, remotely. This is a product that we just added, and the goal is to displace the need of having those standalone sensors and make them all on textile. So again, for us, is to enable this access from the human system to all of those possibilities. Because I personally am not a fan of segregating diseases on one person using different clinics. I believe one person needs to have a holistic relationship with care. And then relationship between musculoskeleton or pain or heart or sleep should be completely holistically approached, as opposed to symptom for one disease. Often we have those issues. You have someone with blood pressure, and then they have a back pain, and someone is giving them a different pill for back pain that may conflict with the blood pressure pill. All of those things, for me, I just don't think they need to be, because technology have a way of consolidating, and especially if you leverage AI, so you understand now what really impact of any prescription one can give. So things like this. We also acquired a company recently in sleep apnea. So this is an FDA and Health Canada sleep apnea. And currently the company has all of these devices that you have to put on in your, next to your bed. So we don't need any of this, because on our chest band, we measure 3-lead EKG, core body temperature, oxygen saturation. But we measure breathing in 3 modalities. We measure chest expansion, and we measure breathing through the ECG calculation. So, and then we measure it acoustically. And so this is an acoustic device. And so you stick it over here, and then, because you need some of those confirmation to qualify for reimbursement. Our product, it's not just for consumer patient, it's for patient and doctors, because doctors could prescribe our product. This is what our regulatory approval is about. So as a result, we generate reimbursement every time a patient is doing a screening. That's what our model. For that, we have to have clinically graded product, lots of clinical trials, and lots of clinical approval. But essentially, this is a system you can sleep with. In fact, you won't notice it when you wear our product. It could be in a form, as I mentioned to you, in a chest band or an armband or a bra or a tank top or a polo. And in some countries where you need acoustic measurement, you just add this. Otherwise, going to a sleep apnea, you have to have a cap with wires, you have to have something in your nose, you have to have an autosat in your fingers, and you have to have it's a very complicated, it's a horrible experience. And most people in Canada alone, we have 6 to 8 million people at risk of sleep apnea. There is no chance that the system could examine that level of population with risk in a brick and mortar clinic. It's just not possible. So we're developing a model where care could happen anywhere. It could be in your car, at home, at office, and it should be available to anyone, irrespective of their location. So these are some of the things that we acquired. And then you've seen some of those things before. I think you've seen this before. This is now a very unique product. It's a base layer garment made of natural material, but it has a thermoregulation system. And so it can heat up parts of your body. So if you're a skier, it understands from the biomechanic data that your movement, it understands your core body temperature, and maybe it doesn't heat up when you're performing. But it also heats up as soon as you rest to keep your system in check. But instead of having all that sweat, especially when people wearing these heavy jackets, we have developed a technique, what we refer to as a electroosmosis. So electronically, we can move all the sweat through the garment, so we keep people dry, because it's pretty dangerous. And again, SKIIN is an example, but we have an application with the Canadian military, and we have an application with police force. In Canada, people have to wear very thick garment to protect from very cold environment. The problem is, even if it's minus whatever outside, 20 or 30, you still sweat if you have very thick garment like down jacket, etc., constantly lock you up. So all that sweat if it stays in your system, it will have what they call a chilling effect. So in our system, we drip the sweat from here electronically. And I can show you some videos after on that. So this is kind of what we're doing. You know, we have 200 or so scientists and engineers developing next generation materials. But what's different about us now, as of June last year, we started commercializing our product, and over 21,000 patients used our product since June for arrhythmia and AFib burden, and we have doctors issuing our product. We have maybe between 180 to 200 cardiologists using our product, and we have large laboratory in Canada will be using our product starting soon. So things are going very well, and the reason why doctors like our product and patients like our product, because you don't have to shave, prepare the skin, all of those extra costs, they add up to a cost already that's very high in the clinic operation. So we're reducing significant amount of time in the workflow, and we're improving patient and doctors' experience. But the most important thing we do, 90% of Holter studies in Canada are less than 3 days. And according to Health Canada's guideline, 14 days is what's minimum required to really understand if someone have arrhythmia or not. 60% higher chance of discovering if you have arrhythmia if you go to 14 days as opposed to 2 to 3 days. The problem is people only can tolerate the adhesive for so many days. So that's why 90% of the experience is either 3 days or less. But wearing a textile product that you can wash and wear at home, you can wear it every single day. And as a result, you don't have to miss that clinical biomarker. At least you'll go back to your doctor with evidence, and you start dealing with like a plan how to program or how to develop a solution so you don't get into a chronic condition. What's important to me is to properly explain what we're trying to build. We're not trying to put some sensors on textile and sell textile for a price. It's not what we're trying to build. We are developing a completely new category. Now, why this category is very important. So this textile, it could be made of, it has PDOT or graphene or carbon base. Imagine this textile, this yarn, that we have to manipulate the molecule and engineer particles in the center. And then we have to extrude it into this form factor. And then we have to weave it or knit it robotically into a textile system. I refer to it as a textile system because not just any bra. Although it's washable and dryable, it looks like everyday bra, but it's a medical device that provide access to the best-in-class care to anyone. So this idea of solving a problem where, like, for example, I'm sure you remember in Lebanon, when I grew up, if you wanted care, I was living, close to Zahlibi, Ablias, you have to go to Hotel Dieu, or you have to go to some top hospital. So if you're living in some small town, Lebanon, you're out of luck, and even then it used to take us 4 or 5 hours with all the issues in Lebanon to get to that location. And so I personally believe what we're doing is, and again, it's not an overnight. I started this in 2010, and it's a 15, 20, 25 years plan before you start seeing the benefit. But essentially what we're trying to do, technology support human evolution, always been. From the very first onset of any advancement, human evolve around technology. And I see a need now to move away from an episodical interaction, and I will explain that in a little bit, into a form of coexistence with technology. So it's a very different mindset, because if you have to interact with technology, then you have to have a specific device to do specific interaction. And I see, as I said, a requirement for a form of coexistence. Why this coexistence is essential? Because with the advancement of LLMs and robotic and autonomous mobilities, one has to ask a question. how do we envision humans participating in this new hyper-connected society? It's not going to be that let me type to tell my car to take a left turn and right turn, or to tell my robot to do this and that. No, it's gonna be, you have to imagine that the robot is part of your family, or a car knows exactly what's going on with you. Because you have to ask those questions. If you are in the back, I've written about this in 2016. If you're in the back seat of an autonomous car, and you order the car to take you from point A to point B, and let's say that distance is 3 hours of driving, and you're in the back seat, and you choked on your saliva, or you had a stroke, or you had some medical event, you have to ask yourself, how would the car know to take you to a hospital? Because you're already, so if the system is going to be, you're going to go type or you're going to speak, well, you're not in a position to type or speak. So this form of coexistence, I believe, is a necessity that we have to solve. So I chose textile because for me, I went through the same thing but differently. My late dad developed a severe dementia. Someone with dementia can't participate. It's the same analogy I was giving you, someone who just became temporarily sick in the back of a car. So, but someone with dementia is permanently not able to communicate or to tell someone what's right and wrong with them. So as a result, they're gonna be marginalized and they're gonna be left behind. So, but what made me think about all of this is this issue with my dad and plus my past experience. But then I've realized you can't teach someone with dementia new habits. So I felt, since my dad is wearing textile from top to bottom, why don't I research the possibility of making textile that medium? So as a result, 15 years, 16 years of development, we just start shipping product mid last year. So again, think of this yarn. As I said to you, we developed it in-house. That is a form of power storage or data storage. Think of it as a sensor for really advanced clinical biomarkers. Think of it as a care delivery system, drug delivery, wound healing, developing pain relief using this. So the beauty about that is it's going to enable all sorts of new possibilities. This category, we refer to it as the textile computing. It's truly a form of a computing in the future. But that form of computing is going to enable an interface that's already coexisting with us. And that interface will allow the Internet of Humans, which is what we want to solve. As opposed to think of Internet of Things and one disease at a time, we think it has to be the Internet of Humans that need to be interfaced with in order to solve future problems. So, and in order to make it accessible to all demographic, and regardless if they live in a small town or a big town, regardless if they can afford it or not, 100% of the population is wearing textile. And as a result, in my opinion, it forms the best candidate to be that interface to allow human and LLM to coexist for the benefit of humanity. So what I was saying to you before, this is kind of what we solve for. Textile is a $4 trillion industry. It's a massive one, but it's highly fragmented, and it requires low-cost labor, predominantly China, India, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh. It left the production of textile is no longer in Europe, in Canada, and the US. It's predominantly in the Far East. And no one is developing advancement on that textile beside a stretch or wicking or whatever. And there's all sorts of problems now with these materials given the environmental impact they create. But I want to use textile to enable physical AI. Like really, that's what at stake for us. But the way we do that, we enable this direct interoperability between human body, machines, could be autonomous machines, robot, and agentic AI. And agentic AI is really important because I want to live in a closed loop system. What is important to me, or what my pain therapy for me, could be different than you. Even though we may be the same age, the same body weight, the same whatever, but there are also the reaction that my system is emitting that the doctor is not aware of, post-discharge and post-therapy. So the beauty about this future, imagine a personalized, high precision care that's constantly and dynamically adjusting, right? So that's what we're trying to do. So as a result, we want to build the interface to enable this Internet of Humans. But again, I will say this and I will move on. This idea happened before. It's not some new idea I'm creating. I'm just following things that happened. The iPhone in 2006 came out, and the strategy was to really leapfrog all the existing technology and enable a new type of human-to-computer interface. And so as a result, standalone devices, the music players, in fact, the music industry was completely disrupted. The stopwatch, the camera, the camcorder, just to name a few. So what the iPhone did, they opened the API of that phone, and as a result today, 3 million apps exist that are not owned by Apple. They just exist on that device. And Apple has a handful of apps. And so that created a completely new evolution and a new type of relationship between humans and AI. As a result, we all benefited from this. But fast forward to now, this device requires intention. You have to type, you have to speak, you have to interact. But the future is going to be a continuum of coexistence between humans and AI. It will not be episodical. It will not be, okay, I remember, let me go type. No, it will be, you think, and it will happen. That's where the future is moving toward. So how do you enable, or how do you build, if you will, the chassis or the framework for that? So we felt we have spent 16 years mapping the entire body. And we developed sensors and actuators that could be weaved or knitted on textile, which is why we spend all of that time. It's not easy because you're dealing with so many different disciplines, from advanced materials to environmental impact to making sure those materials can sustain washability. But even when you finish all of that, you have to go and do clinical trials, and you'll find out that whatever you had in mind doesn't work. And then you go back to the drawing board. And we went on over this multiple times until we achieved a clinical grade product that really served our purpose. And so we're not trying to replace a fitness tracker or Whoop band or Oura ring. That's not what we want to do. We're trying actually to replace the physical experience you have or you need with a doctor. And we're trying to enable a similar experience at home without the need of being there. But that physical experience where the doctor is asking spontaneous questions based on how you look and how you talk are not available if you use those things. But when you have all the modalities, they become embedded into the communication. And so you infer all sorts of things automatically, and with AI, now you can interpret those things as if you are next, or in fact, in many cases, even better. So we mapped out the entire body because at stake is the entire body, not the wrist, not the finger, not some device for the head. No, we want to cover the entire body because we think relationship between humans and AI must be safe and accurate. But for accuracy, you can't afford on one modalities, like a typical device. Today, for example, a blood pressure device only measures blood pressure. It doesn't measure your pain. It doesn't measure how you slept. If you look at a heart rate, only measure your heart rate device. A temperature sensor or a thermometer, it only measures that. I don't care for all of those things. I care for the human being. I want to make sure the well-being of a human being is extracted in the most accurate way. And to do that, this is what we spend. So I want to be able to superpose across every interaction the entire data possible with every time we interact with care or with AI. So anyway, the bottom line is, how do we enable a continuous access to the human operating system? It's like a DSL cable to the computer. Think of it like this. That's where the building blocks of human to AI, human to autonomous mobility, human to machine, needs to be constructed properly. And I will say it again, that idea came to me, that challenge came to me, trying to solve a problem. My dad lived through it, because someone with dementia can participate. In the near future, someone without dementia won't be able to participate if the whole community is going to be hyper-connected with advancement. So it won't be fast enough. So what I want to say is we had to build the entire stack, advanced materials, advanced assembly, robotic assembly, which you will see when you go to our facility. This is our DTX facility, which we're going to show you, the first of its kind. And then this is our advanced materials. You've been here before. And the result of that, we're building Apple-like product, really game-changing product. So this is, think of it like our iPhone, except in a form of a textile. So this allows developers to develop additional digital product. You know, we measure core body temperature, we measure sounds, we measure EKG, we measure biomechanic, we measure fall and slip, we measure sleep, all from an everyday textile. So you can have all sorts of new product, and we don't want to do every product. We want to be focused on a specific thing. So the idea is this. This is kind of what I want to tell you is, this is the focus that Myant is focusing on. Our goal, and my personal goal, is to consolidate all of those 8 seriously chronic conditions into one form factor, accessible to all. So here's the problem we solve today. And you're living now in Dubai, and the same problem exists anywhere. Someone in Dubai with a sleep apnea will see a sleep apnea specialist. But that sleep apnea may lead to an arrhythmia or may lead to a heart failure, because that's unfortunately what starts stacking up. So the reality is, this is a separate doctor. Then they have to converse with that doctor, different time. And then they have to, so the whole thing is mishmash, highly fragmented. And at the core of it is a patient who just want to feel better, who just want to live longer, who just want to be healthy. And on top, you have a family of that patient, often living abroad or different location, worrying about that patient, and then calling this, saying, what do you think? And calling this, and what do you think? And everybody's trying to Google or to chat GPT how to solve the problem. The solution is, if this person is wearing an everyday underwear, bra, tank top, in this case, tank top, or an underwear, they can now have a near continuous multimodal data. When you leverage AI, you start seeing early deviation. And then the doctor could say, okay, you know what, maybe I could issue a drug. But then I can issue a drug safely because all the biomarkers are clinically validated. And so this idea of, let me book an appointment that's going to be in 6 months from now to see the specialist, and maybe this will do me a favor, maybe this one could accept, just all of those things are not possible to sustain. So we want to be known to solving the cardiometabolic health disease using our product. And then we want to work with partners to build product for the rest of the body. As a result, we enable the Internet of Humans. And so this is our first app. So this app allows examination on demand. It's our own product for arrhythmia. So you can do 14 days, 30 days arrhythmia check every day, anytime you want. You don't need to see anything. It has a symptom log. It can detect an irregular heart rhythm. And as a result, doctor seamlessly, digitally will prescribe a Holter that could recapture 14 days of the past, retrospectively or prospectively. So we've done significant amount of those tests so far. This is our second digital product. The doctor now could see your data real time from anywhere. So let's say, for example, a family member, they want to take it to another doctor. They want to have a second opinion. So they can share the data seamlessly if the patient permits them to. This is our third digital product that we launched this year. This is what we refer to as a try-test. And we think this is so important, as opposed to think of human body disease, one disease at a time, like a commodity. You have to look at the whole body and do examination on demand. So people living with heart disease, most likely they'll develop one or those 3 at some point in their life. So in Canada alone, we have 6 to 8 million people at risk of sleep apnea. We have 2 million people living with COPD. We have over 1 million living with heart failure, over 1 million living with arrhythmia. The problem is they only go to the doctor when they have a symptom. And unfortunately, the doctor makes an appointment in the future. Often the patient says, I don't have time to go. They cancel because they felt better by the time the appointment is there. So all of those things will lead to neglect and will lead to delay. And we say, why? You wear our product, you don't need to see anyone, and the information is flowing, and you have an equivalent examination as if you are in the best clinic anywhere. So this is what we refer to as a try-test. And this is the company we acquired. We're adding that, all the biomechanic. Often patients fall as a result of arrhythmia. They get dizzy, they fall, they break their hip or whatever that happened. Then they go to a physiotherapist. And the physiotherapist doesn't know their medical record. So what we're trying to do, we're adding this new biomarkers into our platform because that's part of our goal, is to make a holistic health. So you can do a full assessment. Here it is, from neck to feet, across low back, neck, all using digital biomarkers that we collect. So you don't need to sit down with a physiotherapist and someone is interviewing you for 20 minutes, writing a lot, which often leads to a lot of mistakes. So everything is digital, and then you can now, the doctor is prescribing a rehabilitation program, and the patient is following from home, and you can see the progress across every muscle group as a result. So the goal is we want to own the dry test, and some of our lab partners will do the wet test. So imagine a future where this need to go to your family doctor for a physical test could be enhanced by having conveniently at home an equivalent or even better than a physical test where all your biomarkers are tested over a very long period of time. That's the only way, in my opinion, how you prevent chronic condition or delay them. This idea of waiting for only dealing with sick patient, it's something, in my opinion, of the past, and that system is imploding. There is no chance the sick care system is going to survive. There's no chance because our hospitals in Canada are overloaded, the cost is through the roof, and the problem we solve using 15 years of development is enabling access using everyday textile, like something people are familiar with. And that's kind of what we're trying to do.